I got in trouble the other day. For real. My wife, she was at the gym. She was working out. And they had this particular channel showing. And so she's just, my wife and I are not exactly on the same page with a lot of things. But she said she was really proud, that I was on TV, but as she began to listen and folks were watching, she said like it was real racist, and I said a lot of things I shouldn't have said, and she was embarrassed. And I don't mean it to be that way. I tried to express it to her, but you know how it is sometimes, trying to explain things to your spouse. But I'm not racist. There are just some things that need to be, that are true. Now she said, well, I'm a minister. And she said, well, I can be a minister and say these things. What about all the people you're going to offend, I mean, look, the reason I'm on this program is because people have, the issues and ills that we have, in our minds that motivate us to do the destructive things that we do. The destructive things that we do, or the manifestations, might be similar, they might be the same. But the reasons why, the roots of those ills are not the same. And that there are certain roots of ills of African Americans that are unique to African Americans because of the history of African Americans in this nation. And so to me, if you're trying to deal with the reality of the illness, which is the root, you got to be real about those roots. And so it's not really, I don't mean to be racist because, some of my best friends, I'm not that way. You guys, you people that know me. But these are particular issues that have to be dealt with in the hearts and minds of black folks. And in order to really be well, there has to be some honesty there. So you just can't come to somebody who may have been mistreated. See, this is what we do. What we do, like as estranged parents. So, say a parent that hasn't been in their child's life for maybe 20 or 30 or 40 years, okay, and then shows up one day and says, okay, everything is fine now. It's not going to be fine, and it's not going to be just as if he was there all of his life. Whatever the ill is, there has to be some reality, some truths dealt with, and maybe it can be that way, but there are certain things that have to be addressed first. And so what I'm saying is you just can't give somebody 40 acres and a mule after you've done mistreated them, and their mamas, and their mama's mama, and their mama's mama's mama, all their lives. And so to me, what I find as far as people are concerned, it's easy to bribe somebody. It's easy to just give somebody something and say, okay, we're even now, right? We can do that, but it's not going to work. That somebody is going to take what you're giving them, but they're not going to feel well with you. Take the Native American. I don't care. Is the history in this country that America has done to the Native American? There is nothing that can be done to fix that. Now you can sort of assuage some of them here. Here's some money. Here's a casino. Give you some money. Try to make them feel good like that. But that injury will never heal. There's an old saying that if I kill a man, I've killed a world. And what that's giving us an understanding is it's sort of like if I kill this man today, I didn't just kill one man. I killed him, yes, but I also killed his children that would have been born had I not killed him. I've killed his grandchildren that now will never be born because his children will never be born because I killed him. I killed his great-grandchildren because his grandchildren will never be born because his children will never be born because I killed him. You see where I'm going? Anybody that does network marketing understands exponential growth or compounded interest if you're in the financial industry. So recognizing you may have just killed one man, but you've killed generations and generations, thousands and millions of people. that will never be born, that would have been born, had that one man not been killed. So given that reality, when you look historically at the Native Americans, nations, millions of people themselves as individuals were massacred, how many people were really killed? You could never fix that. That's what I'm saying. So now if you want the individuals that are still alive, whose ancestors weren't murdered, whose ancestors weren't genocided, who are here today to be well, you're going to at least have to come clean with what you did to them, okay? And so then when we're talking about African Americans today, and this is what I fault a lot of times the African American community, because we do come to a place, some of us in our lives, where we do make it. We do have things. We have education, we have jobs, we have money. Now, I was speaking to this African-American gentleman about a year ago, and he was upset with wealthy African-Americans because they're not giving back to the community. Like they got enough money. I don't buy that. That just perpetuates the problem, that beggar mentality, which we have as well. Which as well, when I see those little football players, the kids out on Gettysburg asking for donations so they can buy uniforms, what I see is another generation of beggars being created. Instead, go on over to some old people over at Madden Hills, some old retired people, knock on their doors and ask them what you can do to make some money. And a lot of those people are on fixed incomes because they're retired, but I know them. And those people will give these little kids work to do, and they will pay them. So quit sending your little pee-wee football players out there on Gettysburg begging for money, just giving them a reality that it's okay to ask people to give them something. We're creating beggars in that. We're not helping the situation. So I don't believe in just giving stuff to folks because that ain't helping them. I do believe we can go into communities and try to impart into them what we know, what we can help, like this program, best I can do. But there are enough programs out there that are giving away free stuff. There ain't nothing that needs to be done free, given free, because it's not going to last. It's like giving somebody a car. I remember once, man, I was in this church. And I had a couple of cars. My wife had a car and I had a car. And I had this old car. And I loved that little car. It was a Storm. I don't know if you remember those little Storms. A little red Storm. But my wife hated that car. I had it before we were married. But I loved that car. But anyway, so I got another car. She had one. So there was a sister in the church who didn't have a car. So I gave it to her. She was a mother, had kids and everything. Next thing you know, I don't see my car. I still call it. And it was still technically mine because I hadn't done the paperwork yet. Turns out she just left it in an alley somewhere. That was it. I mean, because it wasn't, she didn't earn that car. She didn't purchase it with her money. It was given to her. And when you earn something, it's different than if somebody just gives it to you. You appreciate it more. And so I don't believe in just giving stuff away and all, but I do believe that we do have a responsibility to try to impart some insight and understanding, maybe some mentorship in the lives of those that we can in our community. But for me then, okay, some of you know that I functioned in juvenile detention every week, talking to the young people, trying to help them, trying to give them insight, understanding, best that I could with what I knew. And that was kind of interesting. But when you talk to people who are suffering, when you talk to people who aren't making it, you have to recognize that there are internal issues that are causing folks to sabotage their own well-being. And you have to deal with those issues. You have to be truthful. You have to actually, yes, you were done wrong. Yes, you were terribly treated, but now, it's time for you to get yourself up. So what I've seen is that helps sometimes, just the admission of guilt. So when we talk, I think the thing that really ticked my wife off, this is what she told me, in that program she was watching, I think I made a statement to where, black folks are always worrying, especially black folks that have a little bit of something, which is really almost not really much of nothing, but always worried about what white folks think about them. Oh, look at you embarrassing us in front of those white folks. And all I made the statement was, I said, we, given our history, Black folks don't need to be so concerned about what white folks think about them. White folks need to be more concerned about what black folks think about them. I mean, I wasn't even thinking that deep into that statement. I think I was just flowing whatever I was saying, but that like ticked my wife off. Like, you can't be saying stuff like that. You can't be alienating white folks if you're really a minister and all this stuff. But man, I'm really a minister, but truth is true. I mean, Jesus offended some folks, right? Isn't that what we believe? But anyway, so I mean, I didn't mean to offend anybody. I just think that the path to healing takes some admission of perpetrators. Then that yes, we are the reason why you're in this mess. And if the perpetrators aren't going to do that, somebody has to say yes. This is why you are like this, but you cannot remain like this. You still have to make yourself well. So all I'm really doing is just affirming the truths that we all know that we just don't talk about. Okay. And so that's all I'm really saying today, is that we just need to recognize that there are actual reasons why. And there's a lot of the issues are racial reasons. Come on. Now folks can say what they want to say on the other side. We seen a president, the proudest moment. I mean, we're a nation of African Americans who have been terribly treated in this nation. Nobody will disagree with that. No history book or whatever. Terribly treated. Came here as slaves, okay? And even fought the wars from the first wars. Crispus Attucks, Revolutionary War. The first man killed was a black man. I mean, we had fighting units in World War I. We had fighting units, African Americans in World War II. But the only acclaim they're given are, well, they were on KP duty or latrine duty or whatever, or service duties. We had fighters that actually saved the butts of many folks. Who, and we know of the Tuskegee Airmen and all that stuff, right? I was speaking to this older gentleman, African American. He was like a teenager in World War II, and he was there. I mean, an older teenager. And he said the film crews, when we see all these newsreel footage of the military men, during World War II, and we only see white guys. Now, you gotta understand, this man is probably about 80 years old or so. I don't know exactly how old, but he's kind of old. I love talking to old people. He was telling me he was an older teenager, but he was there with his units of fighting men in World War II. And the film crews would come in to film. They would film, and they would go over the black people. They would stop filming. They wouldn't film the black people. The black people were in the same place as the white folks, but they would not film the black people. So when this newsreel footage came back, and the newsreel footage, black and white, that we see today, you don't see the blacks in there, because these guys that were filming actually stopped filming and edited the film, edited black folks out of the film. This old man was literally crying when he was telling me this story. This man was a successful man. He had worked all his life. He had retired. But this wound was so deep to him from the time he was a teenager. He was actually crying literal tears while he was telling me this story. Another gentleman, old African American that I was talking to, he was on a Navy ship. This gentleman just passed away about a year ago. Older gentleman, he was in the Navy. And he was on a Navy ship, going to the same places, doing the same things. He said they had showers that were upstairs on this ship. I'm not familiar with ships. I was in the Air Force. And showers that were downstairs. And he said that the black folks could only take showers from the water that the white folks, the pure water that the white folks had used. It was that water now the black Navy folks had to use for them to take their showers with. See what I'm saying? Another gentleman, African-American old gentleman, he passed away as well a couple of years ago. He was telling me about the fighting brigade that he was in World War II. He'd given me the name. I wish I could have remembered it. But I mean, what I'm saying is, so you have these older gentlemen, in their 80s and probably older now, with deep, deep wounds that have haunted them all of their lives. And when they were telling the stories to their children and to their children, generations, what is that doing to them? My mother would tell me this story of I think it was her grandmother she would go to school with this little white girl, and if there was a puddle, she'd have to pick the girl up and walk through the puddle so the girl didn't get her feet wet. We've had other stories of racism and things that humiliations that our families have gone through. And these are wounds.